Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy, champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
What does it look like to have two careers that are both all-consuming?
This week, we're talking with Ambar Martinez, actor, writer, producer, and registered emergency nurse, who has held all of those jobs at the same time.
She plays Nurse Kim Tate on The Pit, the HBO hit she also helped shape as a medical advisor before anyone gave her a line.
How do you build an acting career with nursing as a backup plan, except nursing isn't really a backup plan?
And how do you keep proving yourself in two industries that each assume the other one is your real job?
Plus, we hear why her dad's practical advice turned out to be the best career counsel she ever got.
The creative economy is broken, but some people are still making it work. We're here to find out how. I'm Anna Marie Cox.
And I'm Open Mike Eagle, and this is Past Due.
Ambar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Ambar Martinez is an actor and registered emergency nurse, and she has held both jobs at the same time. She plays Nurse Kim Tate on The Pit, the HBO show she also worked on as a medical advisor. And we're going to start off the way we usually start off, with a question that Mike has made his specialty.
It's true. I've gotten so good at asking this very sensitive question, and we start off all of our interviews with, and it is, when is the last time you were worried about covering your monthly expenses?
Gosh, I guess, I work per diem, so I pick up shifts in the ER, or sometimes I was working per diem and then part-time. And that still isn't enough to cover rent in Los Angeles. So usually I have to pick up more shifts. But it's been a while. Like I've been very lucky that way as a creative to have a stable side hustle job. It's probably been like 7 or 8 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is a while.
Yeah. Because you can always usually pick up a shift. Somebody always wants to have vacation time off. But I would say during the pandemic, I was trying to kind of keep my sanity and not work as much in the ER because it was very stressful. So I would work doing swabbing for production companies. So I would swab actors and writers and producers before they would get on set. And that was a little less stressful. But yeah, maybe that was around the time that I was a little rough. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that stressful in and of itself to have to cobble together things, even if you know you're probably going to meet what you need that month's nut, but you're always at the beck and call of like just having to piece it together?
Yeah, because you can't always pick up shifts. There's times where people just only want to swap shifts, and if you're trying to pick up somebody's, they want to swap with you, but you're like, I actually want to just, pick up your shift. Or, you're hoping that you get called for a medical advising job. And it doesn't happen because there's either not a lot of production going on or there's not a lot of medical stuff going on. I always have, like currently right now, I have probably 3 or 4 jobs. So, I work as a medical advisor on The Pit. I'm acting in a horror short this weekend that I'm getting paid for. I work as a nurse. And then I've worked on 2 different productions in July as a medical advisor, one for Netflix, one for Fremantle. And then I work with writers on crafting their medical scenes for this rescue show. So I have multiple jobs, and sometimes, they need me all at once. And then there's some months where I'm only doing emergency nursing, or I'm only, I don't get to do anything creative. And so, yeah, it's kind of, my income varies a lot month to month.
Since you've been casted on this, very successful show in a recurring role, has that changed how much you've had to do some of the other jobs, or have you had to keep it all up at the same time?
I still keep it all up because, however many episodes I get on the pit, it's not guaranteed. It's only guaranteed when you're a series regular or an established, like, recurring guest star. So I still keep my options open because I don't know until I'm pinned before an episode that, I'm going to get lines in the episode. So it's still kind of up in the air all the time.
And how did that job on the pit start? Were you a medical advisor first and then slid into the DMs of the show?
Yeah, basically. So I did get an audition for it as a patient, and that was how I first became aware of it. And I was like, oh, there's a new medical show coming. This is awesome. I would love to be actually a medical professional on the show, because then, you can come back more. It's kind of one of the best gigs because there's so many different roles on the show, like EMTs that come in that you just keep coming back every season, sometimes multiple times a season. So I did the audition in June, and then 3 weeks later, one of my friends who also is a medical advisor, and we worked together at this clinic, she had talked to one of the executive producers and writers of the show, who's Dr. Joe Sachs, and she found out about this show that they were looking for real emergency nurses. And so she put my name in. The producer called me, and I said I would love to do it, but they wanted me to be there every day because of the continuous, it's every episode is an hour in the day. So they kind of wanted to be able to track you. And so I said I could do 5 episodes, but I couldn't book out that long because I have an agent and a manager. And this was right after the strikes ended, but I had a good season before the strikes. So I said I can't book out from auditions for that long. And so I started. They knew I was an actor. I had talked to some of the producers about, the acting classes I had taken, and, not in an annoying way, but just like sliding it in there and just talking shop. And
so for this scene, you're interested in this? Oh, I actually did an acting scene that also
this reminds me. Yes,
reminds me of something from my acting class.
Yes, yeah. And luckily they knew, who my acting teacher was. And, then I found out by episode 3, they're like, they were going to give me lines, and I was ecstatic. It was just really cool. It was honestly what Hollywood dreams are made of. When you're like, you feel like you're plucked from obscurity, and you're like, oh, they chose me. But and that role developed, and I got to stay on the show for the rest of the season, and then season 2 happened, and all the Emmys, and
I've heard that people were pretty unsure about how the show would land, and that it was this big surprise that it just landed hard, and so many people identified with it.
Yeah.
And that Actually, we should probably have more people from the show on this podcast because the show is a little bit about, precarity and burnout and the ways that we push ourselves in order to stay alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
So did you have a sense of it being something that might plug into the zeitgeist, or did it take you by surprise as well? Were the themes apparent to you?
Yes. Right off the bat, they don't shy away from stuff that's currently going on in the US, in the world, which I love. It's not too preachy, but, they get into the politics of what's going on. They talked about ICE.
Yeah, I was going to say there've been immigration and ICE discussion.
Yes. And then insurance, and then the politics of the hospital versus like administration versus the staff, and which I think is great. So I knew it would be popular with healthcare workers because it was like being dropped into an actual hospital. There's days that I was there where, if I like just spaced out for a second, I was like, am I at work in the real hospital or am I on set? Because it felt so real, and it felt so real with the conversations that were going on too, but then for it to get so popular with, the non-medical audience, I think is really cool, because I think they also learn stuff when they watch the show. I think the people that watch the show are really smart because it doesn't really hold your hand with what they're talking about. They don't explain everything thoroughly, so if you have never had any exposure to any kind of medicine, you're kind of picking it up by the way they explain it, but it's not like, it's very high level dialogue and medical procedures, but it's really cool to see the fandom. The fandom is super into it.
Obviously, on a high quality, medical drama, you're going to have people who have experience in medicine around because they want to make sure things are being done right. Mm-hmm. How common is it for somebody to be involved in a production that's also actively nursing and working in hospitals at the same time?
I think it's less common. I know in Grey's Anatomy, for example, they have some nurses that are in the background that are in their surgical scenes that will take time off. But I don't know if they're really actively pursuing acting, right? I think because of COVID, it is easier to be an actor and also work part-time or full-time because, so many things are self-taped now. You don't have to take time off to go to an in-person audition as much. But it still is pretty rare because it's just hard to dedicate yourself to both aspects, it sometimes it feels like I was just meant to be on the show. It's really cool.
What are things that overlap between being an actress and being a nurse? I mean, you are playing a nurse, so there is that, but I mean in a craft kind of way. Like, what are some skills that are parallel?
I think it was actually a little bit of a struggle for me the more that I did nursing, because a lot of nursing, you don't really show your emotions, right? Because you have to be strong for your patients. Like if a doctor's in the room, they're giving your patient some news that isn't what they were expecting. They're looking at you to see how you react. And, you can be affected and feel, especially like if I have a great connection with the patient, I'll feel some kind of way about it, but I have to not show that because then that will make them more scared. And maybe it's not even that scary or serious of a diagnosis, but it's kind of like, why did this happen to this person? So you actually have to hold back a lot of your emotions, and for acting, you don't really want to do that, So there's parts of it that I had to kind of like get rid of what I call my nursing face, which is kind of your like constant, like pleasant customer service face, right? But then there is some acting involved with nursing too, where you have to act unfazed by certain things that your patients say, or like in the ER, crazy, strange things happen all the time. People stick things where they shouldn't be stuck. And you just have to act like, okay, that's normal. It's okay, So there's a lot of that. And yeah, as far as skill, I think they don't really, I don't know. Being a nurse obviously helped me on this show. Like, it just feels second nature when I say my lines, especially if they're super technical. So that's great. One of my friends who's an actor on the show, she was a waitress, and she says that she feels like her former waitressing job really helped her prepare as a role as a nurse, because it's a lot of prioritization, it's a lot of customer service, it's a lot of like juggling multiple things, multiple tables, multiple patients. And that's kind of how I feel about nursing as well, is that if you can do nursing, if you can do waitressing, you can do kind of anything, because it's all of that prioritization. But yeah, I think that's kind of the main way that they kind of intersect.
I'm curious about the technical stuff, which is one thing that occurred to me is when something, is it you're remembering a line, or is it you're remembering what you'd actually do in this specific situation? Can you call upon what you actually would be doing and saying as much as the line?
Yes. It's sometimes when I would go to work after working on the show, and every now and then we would get a similar case. And I was like, this is really weird. And then I would try to remember how I felt while we're actually in the middle of this trauma or this medical procedure. And it's all very matter of fact. But sometimes, for the show, you have to heighten things a little bit, because if you say everything matter of fact, the audience isn't going to really know, okay, when is this more rare case? Like everything can't be run of the mill, so you do have to kind of emphasize things a little bit more for TV, I think. But yeah, it's kind of funny when you get the same kind of situation that you experienced on set, and then you see it in the hospital, or vice versa.
Right.
You try to recall, okay, how did I feel during this situation? For example, like the overdose kid in season 1, such a sad situation, but those kind of things, you don't cry around the parents. You leave the room, you go to the bathroom and cry, and then you come back out and you are just supportive to the family, I think that's how I'm like, sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, that's exactly what I'm curious about, because sometimes I think about when I think about like doing yapping on camera, like for myself, for videos, sometimes I have to remind myself that rather than explaining something to an audience or thinking about it as being on camera, it's easier for me to imagine just talking through a problem that I would be explaining to an editor or explaining to a friend. And that's what I was wondering about the lines and the situations where if you are in the same situation that you might have been in real life, if you can just use what you would say in real life rather, I mean, you want to say the lines as they are the lines, but I was just curious about that overlap piece. And that is really interesting to me. And it did occur to me as you were talking that you, yes, in real life wouldn't want to be like, nurse, give me like, 20 cc's stat. Like,
yes. Yeah. In real life, if you do that, you're like, like Whitaker kept saying, I need a little help in here. I have yelled, before, but you try to do that rarely, because it does alarm everybody around you. You're more likely to hit the code button. You're like, hey, by the way, this person's heart rate is 200. Let's do something about it versus like, yelling out every time you have an issue. Yeah. But it's much more exciting for TV, right? Then you're like, oh, something's happening. Yeah.
On this week's bonus edition of Past Due, Ambar tells us the thing that kept her going through the slowest month she's had in years, and it's not what you'd expect.
That's for our Patreon subscribers who make this show possible. And thank you all for being there.
Hear it now and more, like our movie reviews on The Odyssey and Backrooms at patreon.com/pastdue. Mike,
Anna,
should we talk about the new Spider-Man movie next?
Sure. We should.
Okay. I have lots to say.
Okay.
So that could be another bonus episode.
Sick. Can't wait. This episode is brought to you by Vinted.
Do you have that pile of clothes on a chair or in your bedroom that has been there so long it is itself furniture? The things you keep saying you'll wear, things you maybe bought for a specific occasion, or things that you can't let go of for reasons. Or maybe you have just, as I have, adopted the pandemic wardrobe as your full-time wardrobe. And that means there's a lot of things that just don't fit into that lifestyle anymore.
Stuff gets cycled out.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have piles of tour merch, very, very relatable for me, or other people's tour merch that you somehow ended up with, hopefully not by stealing it.
Maybe there's a way to turn those old clothes into some extra money, or at least clear up some much needed space.
Vinted is a secondhand marketplace app that makes it genuinely easy to sell the clothes you're not wearing anymore.
There are no seller fees. You list it, it sells. Vinted creates a prepaid shipping label for you, and the money is yours. That's it.
For people in our world, people who are freelancing, cobbling things together, this could bring in a little extra for that thing that you don't wear anymore anyway.
And depending on what you're selling, it could help cover a bag of groceries, a phone bill, a little treat for yourself.
How much you think vintage Open Mike Eagle merch is going for on the market?
Right now, Vinted is also offering free shipping in the U.S. for a limited time.
See what's hiding in your closet. You might be surprised how much you can earn with Vinted. Download the Vinted app for free to start listing with no seller fees.
So you keep everything you earn.
Holiday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Holiday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Holiday. Holiday, bring it on.
There's a lot of people who listen to this show who are creatives that are maybe not in a position to focus on their creative as a career at the moment. So they might be at a day job while they're working on other crafts and other creative outlets. And so it's always interesting to talk to people who are making both work at the same time, because increasingly that's what creators are having to do, even if they are successful, is still keep their revenue diversified. Sometimes when you're working in a non-creative field and you have creative interests, the dynamics can be weird with coworkers sometimes, especially in a workplace like yours where it's very high stakes. Has there ever been any weirdness with people knowing you had outside interests And has that ever been a dynamic you've had to navigate?
When I first started at the ER that I've been working at, they send out a little about me, so the staff can get to know you. And I think I put that I love theater. I don't think I put I'm an actor because, I didn't want to, pick anyone out, I guess, at the time. But now they all know they love it. They actually kind of pimp me out, so to speak. If a patient talks about the pit, they're like, "Oh, well, we actually have someone here that works on the pit." I'm just like, you guys, I have to do my work. No autographs, please. No, it's not that bad. But no, that's been cool. Actually, they've been very supportive. I think because they watch this show as a medical professional, and they're like, "Oh, it's cool that we see one of our own on this show." I think maybe because I've done other things that were not medical shows and that weren't as popular. And so I think people thought it was cool. But I will say I've had the opposite in a way where in the acting or in the producing world, people know that I'm a nurse and they kind of assume that I'm just acting for fun. Like it's not an all-consuming passion of mine, which that I think bothers me more because I have been an actor since I was 8. I knew I wanted to do it since I was 8. I was writing when I was like 9 or 10. I'm still a writer. I'm co-producing a horror short that we're going to film end of September. I wrote it, going to produce it, going to act in it. Like this isn't just a hobby. It's like if I can have 2 careers, cool. Or if I can do one thing, like acting and writing is like all consuming. And I think when people hear that I'm a nurse, they're kind of like, oh, that's your real job. That's your calling. And it's like, yes, I do feel very happy that luckily I love nursing because I think it's a hard job to half-ass do. I think you can tell people whose heart isn't completely into nursing and they just seem burnt out, but I love talking to people. I love providing good care, but I also really, really love acting and writing and the creative arts and expressing and finding stories about how humans connect with each other and how we're not all that different. We might come from different backgrounds and situations, but there's parts of us that we can empathize and connect to. So anyway, I found that more on the creative side where they just kind of assume because you have what's considered a career or a calling that I'm a hobbyist. And I'm like, no, I've spent so many hours in acting classes and workshops and doing paid work that it's like, no, I'm not a hobbyist. And I feel like I always have to prove myself in that regard.
Since you do have to be all in on both,
yeah.
How do you keep from getting burned out? Like, how do you keep your energy up enough for both of those worlds?
I think what's great about working in healthcare is it really puts perspective on how short life is and how to be grateful for my current health and my current well-being and, my family and friends. And so if I feel like kind of burnt out with acting, that kind of gives me perspective. And then vice versa. If I feel sometimes healthcare is just, it can be very negative where you just if you see young people getting like horrible diseases and you're like, why them? And for no reason, right? Like if somebody's just abusing their body, you can kind of be like, well, they kind of did that to themselves, and you can kind of separate yourself from that. And you're like, well, that's a cause and effect. But when just, when you see people getting cancer or just getting these chronic illnesses, and it can be very depressing in a way. And then luckily acting and writing and expressing myself creatively keeps my mental health better. So they really kind of help each other.
And nursing is an unusual day job.
Yeah.
So how did that become the thing that you are combining with acting?
Yeah. So I was a figure skater, and when I was looking to go to college, I wanted to do theater, but my dad is very practical. He's like, well, you should get a job that you can, that's flexible. You can work wherever. Because I was in Colorado, and at first I thought I wanted to do sports psychology because I had worked with a sports psychologist as a figure skater. But he had mentioned doing nursing because he's like, you can work on the weekend. There's always a need for nurses. You can work in Los Angeles. And so I started doing anatomy and physiology, and luckily I loved it. And the thing I liked about psychology, nursing also combines, because I love kind of finding out, talking to people, what makes people tick, why people act the way they act, which also is part of acting too. So I got into the nursing program, and my dad was right. Like I moved to LA to work on the weekends and audition during the week. And luckily I've never been scared about not making rent. There's been times where, like, if I'm putting a lot into classes, because classes are expensive, I'll be a little bit tight, or, and I love to travel. That's also how I keep my mental health. But yeah, he was really smart about that, and luckily I liked it.
Both things do, and by both I mean nursing and acting, they both require a lot of training. Obviously, nursing requires more education, I think, generally. Honestly, I don't know, but I would assume that. Was it ever tough to balance not only doing the jobs, but the learning that it takes to be good and sharp in both of those worlds?
Yes. I find that there's times where I have to like completely go all in on nursing stuff. Like, for example, I just took my certified emergency nurse exam. When you take that, you get a raise along with doing some other things, but that's part of the pathway to getting a raise. And I had already taken this exam in 2018, but then I let it lapse. You have to re-up every 4 years. You either do a bunch of continuing education credits or you take the exam again. I honestly, at that time, thought I was going to leave emergency nursing. And so I was like, I'm not going to recertify. Like, I'm going to leave. It was still around COVID. I was very, very burnt out. And so then I was just also focusing on acting a lot. But this past, actually in June, I took it again. And so for about a week, I just focused on it intensely. Didn't do anything acting or writing related or related to producing my short, So sometimes you kind of have to let one go to focus on the other. But during nursing school, I still was doing plays until it got super busy with like clinicals. And then that nursing school basically consumed my life for the 4 years that I did it. But then I still did films. Like, I did a feature film, an independent one, while I was in nursing school. So it's hard to do both, but you can make time. And luckily, I only work like 1 to 2 days a week as a nurse. Yeah.
I think it seems really smart. I think your dad was giving you really good advice personally.
Yeah.
No AI is going to take the job of a nurse. Like, that's
yeah.
That seems like a recession-proof job. People are always going to need nurses. And in fact, mean, my understanding of the way that healthcare industry is working is like more and more pressure is put on nurses. I mean, they're having to do more and more all the time.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you're seeing that, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is hard because I've seen a lot of people that I've worked with leave nursing, or they leave the ER, or they go to more, what you call soft nursing areas, like GI lab, or, urgent care, or kind of areas where patients aren't as sick. But I do think about things like, well, if all the nurses are leaving to go take care of more healthy people, like who's going to take care of the sick patients that need it? And it's kind of, it's actually kind of what my horror short is about a little bit. Is it's basically like what would happen if we have a nursing shortage and then we actually employ AI to take care of patients, but they don't. But because of their algorithms and their programming, they decide who's worthy of care and who's not. I don't know. It's kind of a Black Mirror.
Yeah, eventually those stories always go to the AI doesn't think any of us deserve to live.
Yeah.
It's more efficient if we all just die.
Yeah, that's basically, and that's why it's a horror, because it's kind of like, let's not get to that area.
Well, it's like a parallel to the healthcare system in general, where resources are going to healthy people.
Yeah.
And the very, very sick are the ones that are sort of stranded in this no man's land where they're not getting care, and they just get sicker and sicker.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring up too much, but I just read this like horrifying story. It is a horror story about like the reduction of benefits in Medicare and Medicaid, and how like all the paperwork. And this is something I know that that the pit interfaces with, like all the ways that which, like, if you don't help these people that are already struggling, all they do is get sicker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and it amounts to money, and also, efficiency, and it's not in the best interest of the patient ultimately.
Or society. It actually, it winds up costing us more money to take care of sicker and sicker people and relying on ERs. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a fun fact. We live in here. We steer back that we live in a society of incredible precarity, which again, I think is one of the reasons why the pit has connected so much with people. Is that it's reflective of, not everyone works in healthcare, obviously, but it's just a more high drama version of a society that we're all living through, with better writing and hotter people. So, it has that to offer.
Yeah, no, it's like reflective of, even family dynamics, which I think is great. I think a lot of people can see themselves in some of these patients and family situations, right? Like in season 1, there was the older gentleman who was in the hospital with pneumonia, and the 2 siblings were deciding what to do, and the daughter said to her brother, you had time with dad, I didn't get to have time with him. And it's like that feeling of regret, and I don't know, just kind of coming to terms with end of life, a lot, which I think about a lot as a nurse, which, I'm like, in 40, 50 years, like, what is that going to look like for me? Which is why I like the creative side of things, because sometimes if I think too long about those, like, what does it look like if I'm chronically ill, even in like 30, 40 years? What kind of care am I going to get? What, but I think that the pit's like, they do a wonderful job bringing up all those topics and feelings and family dynamics and the emotions that we experience as healthcare providers and as patients.
I want to ask you about medical advising. For a lot of people who are, in between two worlds, so, one creative and one sort of non-creative, a lot of times bridging those worlds can seem impossible, but then you can find your way into a position like that you're so uniquely suited for because you have the medical background. It also puts you closer to productions and things that you want to be a part of. So it can be inspiring for folks to hear about these sorts of positions existing. How did you find your way into medical advising? Like, what was that first experience like?
I think it was 2015. I was living in San Diego, and I was doing an independent feature where I was an actor in it, but then they found out I was a nurse, and they said, "Oh, we have this scene where somebody is getting their kidney removed. It's like a black market, type of situation." And so they're like, "Can you help with that?" And I was like, "Well, I've never experienced that, but I can show you what the general gist of it would be." And then when I moved to LA, I was working with someone who was working on the show 911. And she said, "Oh, they have a hospital scene coming up." And she knew I was an actor. She was like, "Do you want to come do it with us?" And so I did. And then that just started like this snowball. It's really about who you know, and you have to put yourself out there too. I also had met a casting director as an actor, but then they found out I was a nurse. And so they brought me on for a code scene, and that was how I got my first SAG speaking role. Yeah, you can't be shy about what you do. And you have to actually put yourself out there. Like, some people are like, "I don't like networking," but I think networking, if it's done in a genuine way, it can be incredible. I feel like that's how I've gotten so many of my jobs, is just referral or just talking to somebody, and then it comes up naturally. You can't, you have to be open and not be shy, but you also can't be sleazy about it. But yeah, just meeting a lot of people and telling them about what you do, and that's how it came up.
So I would suppose that your ideal path here would be to find a way to do acting full time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I would love to also write on a show that I'm in, like an ensemble show. Because I love that creative process too. But yeah, acting full time would be amazing. I love producing. I don't think I want to direct. I keep saying that, and I shouldn't be so narrow-minded on it, but I'm happy acting and writing.
What would you miss about nursing?
Oh, it's a great question. There are times where, like, if I haven't worked in a while, I'm kind of like, I kind of miss it. There is the chaos of, especially ER. You never know what you're going to get. Say it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get because you don't know what case you're going to get. You get to meet so many people in a day as your patients. I love the teamwork of working with staff. But there's times where you really feel like you made a difference in somebody's day and somebody's life. And that feels really good. Where you're like, this was really meaningful. Like I'll get cards occasionally or thank you notes from patients, and like I still remember those. So I can't really think of anything more meaningful than that. I could imagine though, as like a writer, because when I watch really good TV or movies and I'm like, I connected with this so much on like a soul level. I would imagine that kind of feels the same. It's just that human connection, I think. And that's what nursing provides. But I also think being a creative, that's what that provides too. Like when people talk to me in COVID, they're like, well, you worked during COVID. You like, that's so meaningful. But I think also what COVID taught us is that we kind of need TV and movies and entertainment because it was the perfect amount of escapism that we all needed. And it also provided connection, yeah. But with nursing, it would be the patient connection.
Often in our conversations, what sort of arises is how important community is for all of us for dealing with these times. I mean, that's part of the reason we even have this show is because, we're sort of having these conversations and letting people know that, everything isn't always easier for everyone else. Like there's a lot of people are navigating these difficult times in unexpected ways. And we hope to provide a sense of community. Since you are in these two different professions, I imagine you feel like you're part of the nursing or the medical community and the film production community. I'm curious, how do you experience them as different?
I think it's a great question. Nursing and healthcare community, I actually on both sides, you understand each other. There's something about when you work with a crew on production for months and months and you've been through like some crazy shoots, like on certain shows, I've done night shoots and it's like you survive the night and you survive this crazy, sometimes there's like crazy stunts going on or a crazy rescue, like on 911 or something. And you develop this bond, right? That it's like, man, we got through that season. That was wild or, whatever. And then same with nursing, like you develop this bond that you can kind of speak the same language. You can be like, how's your day going when you're on shift together? And they can say a couple of words and you're like, oh, I've been there, or I know what you're talking about. Or if you have a crazy shift too, it's like if you've had a bunch of traumas come in, some cardiac arrests, a couple stroke codes, and you get through it and you provide good care, you're like, oh, we survived that. So there's this like feeling of survival, this bond that they both have. So really, they're not so different from each other. No, and I have this theory, that especially in emergency medicine, that a lot of people are a little at least neurodivergent, and same with people that are in the creative fields. Like you have to be a little neurodivergent, I think, to want to express yourself in this certain way and think about things differently. And being in the creative industry is a risk. I will say that's a little different. Like I feel like people who work in production and in this industry, they're a little bit more prone to risk taking because it is a risk. It's something that society's like, oh, we don't need this, but it's like but we do, and it's so hard to break into it and to have like consistent work. At least in healthcare, for the most part, you're always going to have a job unless you like fuck up royally. But I would say that's the main difference is the ability to tolerate risk.
Yeah. Would you advise someone who is coming up to get a degree in nursing as a day job?
If they feel passionate about it, because I think nursing school was really hard. And it was hard, actually kind of more, I don't know. I remember my first clinical class, they were kind of trying to weed people who are too weak out, and it's like, if you aren't passionate about it and you're just doing it for the money, it might be a little bit harder. There are people that get into it for the money and they still do a good job. But yeah, I think you have to kind of have an aptitude for it. I have talked to actually some actors, though, that have talked to me in the past like couple years, and they're like, I'm looking at getting into the medical field because they want a stable career, and they want to know that they'll be okay, which I think is great because it's a skill that you'll always have. You can always, you can leave it for a little bit, and then it might be harder to get a job again if it's been too long away from it, like 3 or 4 years, but it's always going to be there. People are always going to need care. So I would. Nursing does take a while. You could become an EMT. That's a quicker course, for some actors, and some of them have done that, and then they get to work as EMTs on camera because they have the body mechanics of like how to operate a gurney or how to get a blood pressure, but that doesn't pay that well. That pays actually almost about the same as like a production assistant makes on set, but at least it's stable though.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at the whims of when production is going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It sounds to me a little bit like the qualifications for wanting to be a nurse are not that dissimilar for being an actor. Are you tough enough? Do you really want to do it?
Yeah.
Are you willing to go through all the training? Are you willing to make some sacrifices and stick with it when it's not glamorous or not fun, and really just be there because you actually do love the job itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they both test you. There's been some days, like I remember in nursing school, where I just like would cry, and there's some days with acting where you're so frustrated and you're like, you get a call back and you're like, okay, I think I'm going to get this role. And then you don't. And to expect that, but it still hurts, especially when you feel so connected to, that character. You're like, I really thought that was my character. So, yeah, it really tests your mettle, both of them.
This episode is brought to you by Vinted.
Do you have that pile of clothes on a chair or in your bedroom that has been there so long it is itself furniture? The things you keep saying you'll wear, things you maybe bought for a specific occasion, or things that you can't let go of for reasons. Or maybe you have just, as I have, adopted the pandemic wardrobe as your full-time wardrobe. And that means there's a lot of things that just don't fit into that lifestyle anymore.
Stuff gets cycled out.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have piles of tour merch, very, very relatable for me, or other people's tour merch that you somehow ended up with, hopefully not by stealing it.
Maybe there's a way to turn those old clothes into some extra money, or at least clear up some much needed space.
Vinted is a secondhand marketplace app that makes it genuinely easy to sell the clothes you're not wearing anymore.
There are no seller fees. You list it, it sells. Vinted creates a prepaid shipping label for you, and the money is yours. That's it.
For people in our world, people who are freelancing, cobbling things together, this could bring in a little extra for that thing that you don't wear anymore anyway.
And depending on what you're selling, it could help cover a bag of groceries, a phone bill, a little treat for yourself.
How much you think vintage open mic eagle merch is going for on the market?
Right now, Vinted is also offering free shipping in the U.S. for a limited time.
See what's hiding in your closet. You might be surprised how much you can earn with Vinted. Download the Vinted app for free to start listing with no seller fees.
So you keep everything you earn.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Thank you so much for coming on. You definitely have one of the more unique career paths of any creative that we've had on before. And one of the reasons I'm excited to ask you our traditional last question for folks, which is it's important, for everyone we bring on, the way that people can support them.
Yeah.
That is the most important question we can ask. So, know you have a horror short coming up, but that's obviously a ways in the future. But what are the best ways for people to support you in your creative work? I assume we're not going to send people to the ER.
Yeah. Actually, the best way to support.
What hospital are you working at? Can we get people to show up? Get a blood draw.
Yeah. Take care of your bodies. That would actually make me very happy. Get some exercise, even if it's walking. Go outside and be in the sun. But you can follow me at Ambar, Ambar, a go on Instagram. Support horror, support indie film, support, creatives. I think what I realized, and during my own Seed and Spark for this horror short, it's called Emergence, which has to do with when AI becomes kind of aware, so it becomes self-aware, and it also does something that it was not programmed to do. And then also emergence is like coming out of anesthesia, when it has a twofold meaning. But what I've realized during my own, crowdfunding is that even just, posting a story, whatever your friend's doing, just showing support in that way, hearting it, commenting, all those little things meant so much more when you're putting yourself out there. And I used to think, oh, that's not enough. I should, if I'm going to support my friend's thing, I have to post about it, blah, blah, blah. But just doing any little thing, restoring somebody's story, all those things matter. And they just build up their bank of oh, I have people behind me,
That's real.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, your story is very inspiring. I think, sometimes it's just interesting or good for people to hear that different ways of making it and putting a life together are even possible. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great.
And thank you so much. Okay, so Mike.
I don't know.
You have an album.
I do. It came out. I had another.
That has gotten amazing reviews.
Yeah, it's got some good reviews. It's got some good reviews.
Just flabbergasted. Not, because I'm surprised at how good it is, but there's some really
effusive praise.
People are having some intense feelings.
It's true
about this album.
It's an intense album, so I can't fault anyone for having intense feelings about it, especially anyone who's been through a relationship crumbling. It's called Doomed. Rap songs about a relationship that falls apart in every possible universe, and it is out now. People can listen to it on all of the streaming services that don't pay us much as artists, or they can go to Bandcamp and buy it on vinyl, or even buy it digitally, which for me in my existence is very helpful. I don't know what you got going on.
And Mike, what I'm up to. And I'm glad you asked, Mike, about what I'm up to. I'm up to both, as usual, I'm up to both everything, and yet it feels like not enough.
I totally
So understand. I have my other podcast, Space the Nation, which you can find out more about at patreon.com/Space the Nation. And also we have a website that's at thenation.space, which I very rarely mention, although I'm very proud of it. And also, in hindsight, I was being far too clever with registering that URL, but it appealed to me at the time. I have a news story out with the New Republic about the devastatingly long wait we've had for a female president, kind of just going through the history of that and the sober realization that it's probably best case scenario, it'll probably be another 8 years at least, if the Democrats choose to be cautious this time around. And then I have my own Patreon, which is patreon.com/AnnaMarieCox2. And up there right now is a Did a little project around the columnist David Brooks, where I edited one of his columns, and also I did a video talking about what is wrong with his writing, and a surprising example of a column he did that I really like. And you can find the video at YouTube, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/AnnMarieCox, and then the supporting documentation on my Patreon.
And remember, folks, like we say when we talk to our guests, as creators, is every way that you engage with our work is important. So please do check us out on all the places.
Past Due is hosted by Anna Marie Cox and Open Mike Eagle. It's produced by Andrew Stephen. You can find more at pastduepodcast.com. Help support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/pastdue. You'll get bonus content, extended interviews, and more. As always, if you like what we're doing, another way to help is by subscribing, sharing the show, and leaving us a review. Thanks for listening.
From the history of Hershey to the business behind the hit podcast Acquired, Cold Call, the chart-topping management podcast from Harvard Business School, gives you a seat in the classroom where these legendary cases are brought to life. I'm Brian Kenny, the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Harvard Business School and the host of Cold Call, which explores the real-world case studies taught in our classrooms, featuring the professors who wrote them and often the executives, entrepreneurs, and innovators who lived them. In each episode, we break down the decisions, trade-offs, and leadership lessons behind some of the most fascinating organizations. Not to mention, we just dropped a new video series examining AI case studies like the Atlantic's partnership with OpenAI, Mass General Brigham's use of AI to streamline clinical documentation, and Harvard Art Museum's experimentation with generative AI. So don't miss out. Follow or watch Cold Call on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Holiday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Holiday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner, by knockout, is Holiday. Holiday, bring it on.